listening to the House by the Video Store podcast.
There's no more room in hell. The dead will walk near.
We have such sights to show you.
I kick ass for the Lord.
Praise God!
Welcome to the House by Video Store podcast. I'm your host, William, and joining me today will be Derek.
Hello.
And Sean.
Hello, we've been sitting here for 1 week waiting for this podcast to start.
Wearing the same clothes, no showers, no food.
We're so dirty.
Yeah.
On this episode, we'll be discussing Lethal Weapon, which isn't horror, but it's an 80s genre film
That
that
is set around Christmas.
set around Christmas time, and this is being recorded in December.
And if you're wondering, it is better than Die Hard, and it is a better Christmas.
Oh my
than Die Hard.
God. We just started a flame war with people.
I need to revisit Die Hard and really watch it a few times, like on disc,
God, I've seen it so
instead of
many
TV.
times.
Well, because I always watch it
Yeah.
on TV, but I'm there with you. I can watch Lethal Weapon many more times over than Die Hard.
I think what makes
as
Lethal-
much as Die Hard is like
Die
very well
Hard's great.
structured. Yeah.
But I think what makes Lethal Weapon just a little more special is it's the buddy cop film.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's kind of like a weird analogy here, but like multiplayer games are usually more fun than single player games.
Yeah,
in certain aspects, like
and
replayability.
It's
Yeah.
funnier, so it's like comedies. I think have a higher rewatch value.
Yeah.
You know what I
Well,
mean? Like because it is so
And
funny.
there's so much more going on where it's like Die Hard's kind of set in one place, which these are both in LA, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, because he's from New York and comes to LA. Yeah, so
that's
both
right.
of these are in
Academy
LA.
Plaza.
Yeah, I just would love a shared universe where both of these
Oh.
things happen at the same
Where
like,
John McClane has to run into Merton Riggs, and then
Yeah.
they're like, I'm too old for this shit. Yippee-ki-yay.
But I think
Mullet.
I think one thing that helps me like
Well, I mean,
Lethal,
Die Hard 3 was a Lethal Weapon script, right?
yeah.
Well, like it was, and then it was like Simon Says and something else that got mixed together. And
I'm Alan Rickman. Was he in that one again, or is that just his twin brother?
No, Jeremy Irons was supposed to be
Okay.
Alan Rickman's brother.
Okay. But anyway, like I don't even know where I was going. I'm completely lost now. I've lost
But
my
Lethal
way.
Weapon is a seminal 80s genre action film
Buddy cop.
set around Christmas, not directed by, but written by Shane Black and directed by Richard Donner, who also directed
Superman.
Superman.
And produces all the X-Men films.
Yeah, so
There's your X-Men connection.
a very big encapsulation of the
The
80s.
X-Connect.
Because we went back and forth on like, since it's December, let's cover some stuff that is just, slightly related to Christmas. And then it's like, well, Die Hard is something that everybody talks about.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, is it a Christmas movie? Is it not? Well, actually, so it's like, let's not do that. Let's do something else. And it's like, oh, well, half of Shane Black's movies are set on Christmas anyway. And Lethal Weapon's the first. So let's
and
talk
Lethal
about
Weapon's
that.
better.
Because I think even if somebody's a hardcore horror fan, they probably can sit back and enjoy some of those 80s action films like that.
Yeah, I can't remember. Is there a Canadian tuxedo in this film worn by Mel Gibson? Like jean jacket, jean pants. I cannot
no,
remember. I know he wears a
no,
jacket, but I don't know if it's a
no,
like
there's no-
Bret Hart
there's
Canadian
no
tuxedo.
jean jacket.
Okay, but there is a mullet and there is very tight fitting pants. So it's definitely the 80s. Did anybody have a mullet?
And a bare naked Mel Gibson ass.
Yeah, that was like a staple in a lot of his stuff. For
Yeah.
or maybe in the Lethal Weapon franchise, because like I watched a couple of them yesterday, so they all kind of blend together.
What's funny is watching that, and it's like he could have totally, if they made like an X-Men film in the 80s.
Oh, been Wolverine.
He could have totally been Wolverine.
Yeah.
Because I think his name was thrown around like in the early 90s when they were like thinking about making
Just
one.
imagine that film.
It would have been so bad, but it would be. Oh god!
Because there was even like on like one of the cartoons they made as a pilot before they made the 90s X-Men series. Like one of the X-Men pilots they made had Wolverine wearing like the orange and yellow suit.
With an Australian-
And he had an Australian accent. So I was like, were they trying to make it like appeal to Mel Gibson? He's like, you don't have to do accent work at all. Just
Yeah, that was the one they ended up basing the arcade game off of.
Yeah, so we'll be discussing Lethal Weapon.
Mate.
But before we get to that, we'll discuss some things we've been watching that could possibly recommend. So I know, Sean, you watched a couple movies recently.
Yeah, I watched Lucky Logan, which is that Steven Soderbergh film. It's kind of Ocean's 11, but
In NASCAR?
but mixes with NASCAR instead of a casino and kind of your lower tier criminal instead of. But what's great about it too is it's even though it's these kind of just run of the mill,
Jabronis.
yeah, jabronis, country bumpkins, I guess. No disrespect to them. It feels like many people I know. You know what I mean? They're
Yeah.
hardworking individuals, but it's working class Ocean's 11. You know what I mean? It's not these guys that are, very like expert criminals and all this stuff. These are kind of low level criminals, but it's also people that have specialty skills. But because of just the situation, it is funnier. You know what I mean? It's kind of.
Is it more relatable in a way too?
Yeah,
especially being that
absolutely.
We are from an area that would. I don't know if Louisville's as much, but we do have a NASCAR track in the state of Kentucky.
Yes,
so it's like NASCAR.
No, yeah, it's absolutely more relatable than Ocean's 11 for sure. Like that whole world, because it is just kind of everyday, everyday run of the mill people
people we probably know.
It's not
and people we know.
It's not a smarmy Brad Pitt like peeling an apple and constantly eating in every scene.
Yeah. And I like Ocean's 11 quite a bit, but
Ocean's 12 not so much.
I haven't seen Ocean's 12, but I like this film better. Granted, I've only seen Ocean's 11 once. Also,
I've seen it a lot. There was like a long time where they played what was a stupid Mini Cooper movie. The Italian Job. They played that and this. We had HBO back in like 2004 or 5, and these movies were on like.
That's the biggest problem with HBO. They would always show the same movies over and over.
On
At least
loop.
now you have HBO Go, and now
there's also what's the really terrible Jack Black and Ben Stiller film where Christopher Walken's in it and Vaporize is in it. I can't think of the name of the movie.
Oh yeah,
they played those 3 movies.
What is that?
What do you call it when you're envious? It was like jealousy. I can't remember what it was called.
Oh, Envy?
Envy, yeah. They played Envy, Italian Job, and Ocean's 11 like back to back to back to back.
Yeah, Envy was the 2004 film starring.
So this was like in
Ben Stiller and
2005
Jack
because
Black.
I was like a sophomore in high school and I watched this crap.
So I thoroughly enjoyed this film. Like I laughed quite a bit. I'd probably give it definitely a solid 8. But maybe a 9. Like it's not perfect. Like there's some stuff that just happens to work out in the film, but it's like it's having fun with that genre. Like it knows what it's going to be.
Like I would say, and I'm not demeaning this movie in any way.
Yeah.
I would just say like in there because this movie didn't seem like it was in theaters very long, or if it was, I thought it was more of like a limited release.
It was in theaters,
but for me feeling like it was a smaller movie, it's something that I feel like either one, I just fit the criteria the people they were trying to push this movie to, or they did a lot of advertisement for it.
So the model for this film was he kind of, I guess him and I don't know other people, producers or what, they worked out a different business model where normally with films, people that are involved.
Well, it's very hard to actually know what you're gonna make.
Yeah,
because so like it's very like the famous stories like the guy who was like the physical actor who portrayed Darth Vader got a deal where he got a percentage of the actual profit, like the net profit. So taking into account all the expenses and things. So you're thinking Star Wars, huge hit, one of the biggest hits of all time, and just for inflation, it's made so much money. But he still has never seen a cent from it because of the way the studio did accounting.
Yeah, they can fudge those numbers. So Soderbergh wanted to make it transparent and basically log into a website if you're like involved in this film and put money behind it and stuff. And you can see how much it's made and where your profits are at. Yeah. And so they had the film paid. Normally you make a film, you put it out and you hope you make your money back, So they apparently had the film paid for before it was released because they had already pre-sold like international distribution, I guess like Netflix or whatever, VOD, all that stuff. They had already pre-sold that, so that's how they paid for the film. So any of the box office numbers that they got back was like pure profit.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but I don't know if the VOD stuff, like because I had to rent it on VOD. This came out around the time when we had our kids, so I wasn't able to get to theaters to see it. So I don't know if the VOD directly goes to them, but still, it's cool to support cinema like that. You know what I mean? Like they're trying to do right by the people who are actually involved. I
just have a question, just not just pertaining to this film, just in general. At what point do we see major releases also do VOD on the same day they do theater releases? I do think we're heading toward that.
Well, so here's the problem with that, and they've tried that a few times, and the major theater chains balked at the idea and refused to show the movie.
Yeah, because they lose money.
Because once a movie is released online and you can watch it on your computer, then it's immediately pirated and available for free on the pirate sites. So the theater's point is they want to keep, and I know so Adam Green, the director of the Hatchet series on this new Hatchet movie, Victor Crowley, he talked about doing like a theatrical tour with it, trying to, make the money back. Because the second you put it on a disc or you put it online, then it's out there in the sphere and somebody's pirated. So the theater chain is like where you make some of the profits. So in terms of like big major releases going day and date on theater and on video on demand, the only way I see that happening in the near future is if Disney buys a theater chain or something and they do that with their own movie.
I just feel like at some point that we're going to see where, because like to me it would make more sense if they did the VOD if it was like obviously maybe a little, just as expensive, if not more expensive than going to the theater, because that's the only way you could.
But on some of those movies, they made it was like $60 or something, and the theater still didn't care because they weren't getting cut.
Yeah, they're not getting the concession sales and all that.
Because that's where the money comes from,
it's a
is
weird
concession.
push and pull for sure.
But I just feel like there's no way in 10 years from now that when you go see a new movie, I just don't feel like that's going to be
I think you'll see more people going to Netflix and those distributors to begin with versus trying to go through the traditional studio system.
Because
that's where the change comes.
Something like this is like, especially movies that come out and don't do particularly well.
Something like Oakja is released on Netflix.
Oakja, yeah.
But like, I feel like at some point we're going to start seeing like it. I feel like it'd be more expensive, but me personally, sometimes when you go to theaters, like you get a shitty experience. It's just how it works.
Or you go to see Coco and sit through a 22-minute Frozen short film that's the worst thing on the planet.
Yeah, but it's just like I feel like there's a lot of times you go see new movies and it's like because of the people you're there with or just in general, like you get a very bad experience, and I'd almost be willing to pay even $30 more if I don't have to hear those. You get a movie full of teenagers. And you're like,
I love the theater experience. I normally have a good experience when I go. So I would be upset if like theaters went away, but at the same time, like, yeah, right now there's like 10 movies I want to see and I can't just get to the theaters.
Yeah.
Now that my life is like changed, I just can't get to theaters. So now I'm like really like, I really wish I could just watch this on VOD at home so I can at least see it.
And I know that they're getting better about this. Movies a lot of times will hit VOD before they hit DVD services and stuff.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that will speed up. Like once a movie's been through, like, because at what point?
Well,
does
they
a
go
movie-
on, like, sometimes, like, movies will go on VOD on, like, iTunes, like, a month before DVD release, but you can only buy it, and it's, like, $20.
That's what
but see,
that's what's going on with
fun.
it. Like it is coming out before Christmas on VOD, but you can only buy it for $20. And then I think when the disc comes out in January, you'll be able to rent it online then.
Yeah.
And actually that's how Lucky Logan was. For some reason, Lucky Logan, like right before Thanksgiving, I think it was like almost full price to buy only for like $15 or $20. But the disc was coming out in a couple of days, and I said, well, we'll just wait because I bet when the disc comes out, it'll drop down and it'll be able to rent for cheap. And it was still like $5 or $6, but you know what I mean? It was a lot cheaper than that. Like it's when that disc comes out.
But
really.
just like, like Star Wars is a perfect example. Like this movie's gonna make so much money when it comes out, and you go to see it. Because I remember like when I saw for The Force Awakens, like Rogue One didn't really follow with this, but like for like 3 weeks, because I saw it 3 weeks in a row, like the theaters were packed. Never had a bad experience, but it's like at some point it'd be kind of nice, like maybe when they hit that traditional point where they're only making a couple million a week. They'll go ahead and put it on VOD.
Well, I mean, the window is shortened so much that stuff's coming out to
it's
disc and all
so
that
fast
already,
now.
but-
Like
I want it faster.
it's probably will. I'm sure. I'm sure it will constrict for sure.
But it's just interesting because this movie, particular to me, like because I saw a real big push for this movie in theaters before it came out, and like I said, it just seemed like it was really
or maybe there'll be...
It made domestically. It made $27 million. The budget was $29 million, but they had already paid the budget. I think they had already paid for marketing and everything. And then worldwide, it made $46 million.
I mean, did anybody else see a lot of stuff for this, or was it just me?
I think
I feel like
I've seen a few
saw
things.
Well, they also didn't spend much on advertising. It was mostly like they may have had it run as a trailer before one or two things. It was mostly digital, like on social media.
See, I saw a bunch of social media stuff for it. Like I said, I don't know if I was just target. If I was
probably were there.
I had only seen the advertisement probably once in theaters actually because it was a day.
That says a lot about me.
It was a day my wife didn't go with me. I don't know if it was before we had our kid or after or whatever, but like I had known that she didn't see this trailer. You know what I mean? Just because I was like, okay, I've only seen this once. Granted, I wasn't going to theaters as much, but it wasn't like your traditional film where the trailer's playing 5 months before the film comes out.
I just remember like at one point in time I saw a lot of stuff for this because me and Courtney both wanted to watch it. So
I'd highly recommend it. Like if you just want to watch like a good film, like a good funny film that is entertaining, definitely watch it. Daniel Craig, Adam Driver's great in there. Channing Tatum's great in it. Like the cast is awesome.
I don't know what
funny.
type of character Channing Tatum plays in this film, but I feel like whatever it is,
believable character.
I feel like that's probably his strong suit.
Yeah.
Like kind of the goofy, whatever character he is.
Adam Driver's very, very funny in it, but he's like plays it straight. You know what I mean? Like he has one arm in it. Like I don't know. There's just something about his character. Like he's a vet in there, but
I remember in the trailers where he had a lot. I thought he had lost.
Daniel Craig gets to like almost ham it up. You know what I mean? Like he has like an accent and stuff, which I don't know. It's real weird, but it still is like enjoyable because it just feels like you're watching these. It almost feels like a throwback film where it's like, oh, I know all these actors. They're all just having fun playing these parts of this genre film.
Yeah.
Like nothing is that serious. It's not that dire, and it's really fun to watch everything play out. And it's like satisfying ending. yeah, I super enjoyed.
I'm gonna divert something real quick. I just want to say something before I got like this is about his character had a missing limb. There's a dude in the Wisconsin Ohio State game last night that's missing his index finger and was still catching like really ridiculous passes one handed. And I'm like, props to that guy.
Yeah.
If you're a Wisconsin fan, that's pretty cool because they kept talking about it and he had the glove for his finger where his finger was just cut off. So he's got a couple of passes. Like it's kind of cool to see somebody that and there's a guy from UCF that is missing his hand and is like a really good defensive
Central
player.
Florida.
So, do you think like when we start doing cybernetics, there'll be a cybernetic football league like in 50 years?
I wonder because if anybody has been following like true crime, you have the Blade Runner guy, Oscar Pistorius, who I slaughter his last name. I'm sorry if anybody knows what I'm talking about, but like I think at one time he got to compete in the actual Olympics, and I could be wrong.
That's right. Yeah.
And then they kind of deemed that he had an advantage over
because he had those running.
Yeah, I think it would be a different category, So
I wonder as this stuff gets better, like with that guy that's missing the finger, like if they gave, or the guy that's missing a hand from Central Florida, like if it was just function like normal, I don't see it being that big of an advantage. But if it's like, super grip,
yeah, slowly you can. Yeah, I mean, like
if you like grab the football and crush it, it's like okay, no, you can't.
So
do
there's
that.
two new categories of sports that I would watch, which I don't really watch sports now. Is if they had cybernetic enhanced leagues, because that would just be crazy. And then two, like how they had what was the Robot Wars or whatever. What was that thing called?
I know what you're talking about. Was it from on the video game channel?
G4 and like
G4 what was that called? I can't.
BattleBots.
Yeah. So did you all see that video of like that robot that was like jumping and doing backflips?
Yeah.
Like 5 years ago, watching those, they walk real slow.
Have you seen the one where it shows like science is great and it shows a robot fall over?
Yeah,
or something?
I saw another one today that was they're teaching robots to fire guns.
Oh God!
And then like the one where the robot does a backflip and is moving like pretty fast.
Yeah, it's moving.
I think Elon Musk maybe retweeted it and said like, "Oh, don't worry, in a couple years it'll be moving so fast you have to use a strobe light to be able to see it. That's how fast it'll be moving."
I'm out.
So what I want to see is like a football with competing teams that have their own robot players that are that fast. Imagine trying to watch that and you have to slow it down. Like that would be the BattleBots I want to see.
So has anybody seen the movie Chappie?
No, I have not seen Chappie yet.
Is that
it's
with
on
Hugh
Netflix
Jackman
now.
in it?
It's got Hugh Jackman. The voice is Charlotte Copley.
Hugh Jackman was in your BattleBot movie.
So in Chappie, Hugh Jackman had a mullet and he was in his Australian accent.
Mate.
He's like, "Oh, this Chappie robot." That's not his accent.
Shrimp at the Barbie. Just go to the what's Dukes of Hazzard. They just keep doing the.
But yeah. So
But yeah, I'm really interested to see the future of sports with robots. You know,
I guess I just wonder, like, because
that's the esports I want to see.
I just feel like and I know we got
and they'll always stand for the national anthem.
Yeah. But I do think it'll be interesting.
Unless
to see.
they get hacked.
Yeah. Oh,
robots.
Yeah. So it'd be
hack the robot.
Iron Man.
That'd be really dangerous if you could hack them and start slaughtering.
Well, I was saying
audience
you
members.
just go to like Iron Man 2. Like there's your premise of that because I hack everything.
Well, why don't we do like a horror film where it's in the future? It's a robot mutant league, and then terrorists take over the robots, lock in the stadium, and then everybody has to fight the robots.
Okay. Do any of y'all remember the Dead Person Sport League that used to be a cartoon?
Mutant League.
Oh yeah, Mutant League football.
Because I was talking about that the other day at work and nobody knew what I was talking about. And I remember it not being a very good show. I remember they had video game.
Yeah, they made apparently, I think somebody may have the license. They made a spiritual successor to it just now recently, and it's like a new version of that kind of.
I just remember watching it as a kid. It was a kind of.
I watched that too. Yeah,
I don't remember it very well, but I rember the opening scene where like everybody's essentially dies and it shows them come back playing sports. Yeah. It's like pretty morbid.
That's the football show I liked when I was younger. So I can't wait for robot sports. I'm very excited for that. And then I also watched Wind River. So this was written and directed by
Taylor Sheridan, the guy that wrote Hell or High Water
and Sicario. Derek, you still haven't seen Sicario, have you? And you haven't seen why am I blanking on this? When we were talking about it earlier, Shane Black's most recent film.
Oh,
The Nice Guys.
I want to watch that. Yeah,
you did?
Yeah, I know. I want to watch.
You need to watch that and Sicario for sure.
And Predator. When it comes out.
So, especially if you like Lethal Weapon, you got to watch Nice Guys, man. So, Wind River, obviously, he has produced a couple of bangers here recently as far as writing goes. This is his first film he's directed, and I think he did a pretty damn good job directing it. I don't think it's better than either of those films. It's maybe it's a smaller film than both of those. And I don't mean it's not lesser because of that. It's just, it's a smaller story, but it also kind of deals with, I guess, abuse and crimes against Native American women, and it kind of makes a statement about that and a point about that that's, I think, important. But basically, it's a crime film with Hawkeye.
Yeah.
What is his name?
Jeremy Renner. And then
is this the Snow one?
Yes.
With, okay, Scarlet. Yeah. I wanted to,
Elizabeth Olsen.
Yeah, BuzzFeed did a whole bunch of crap about that. I don't know if I just get caught in the crosshairs of all this like advertising crap, but like every time I go on Facebook, there's a sponsored ad from BuzzFeed about that movie.
About Wind River.
Yeah, for a long time.
It's a good film.
Is it better than The Snowman? The movie.
I did not see it.
I heard this
everything
one is
I heard-
laughably bad.
Everything I heard about that movie is really bad, and it's really weird because I feel like that movie got postponed because there's a bunch of true crime podcasts I listen to, and I start back from the beginning. So like in 2016, they were talking about that movie coming out, and it didn't come out till this year.
Yeah.
So it must have been.
Well, apparently the
postponed.
director said they didn't finish shooting the script.
Yeah. Well, it's very, very
which is a problem. Yeah. So this film, it is also procedural. Like watching it as it went along, it sets. I don't know if it was Colorado or I don't remember basically where, but it's around an Indian or Native American reservation. Sorry. And so Jeremy Renner is basically like a tracker. I think he's kind of works for wildlife or whatever around there. And he ends up finding a dead body. And so Elizabeth Olsen is an FBI agent who gets sent there, and basically that's how they get wrapped up together because he's a tracker. She's like, oh, can I help me out with this and stuff. So it does feel procedural in some elements, like almost watching it. Like, I feel like this is like a big budget episode of, you know what I mean? Like
a special Law and Order episode or something where they have like the one-off.
Part of that felt like that. So again, that was like, all right, this is just feeling, it's fine. I'm enjoying it. It's good. But, and I just thought, okay, this film is good. Like I like it. It's nothing like I'm in love with. But having said that, the third act of the film I think is phenomenal. Like I think it ends really, really strong, and it made me like
that
really
also
like the film.
reminds me of a movie with wasn't Christian. What was the other Batman? Not Christian Bale. Who's the one that was like the
Val Kilmer?
Val Kilmer. Where he had the Native American reservation movie where he went to, and he was like the cop. You all remember?
I'm trying to think what that is.
I can't remember. I just remember that as soon as I saw that movie, it was like, oh, they copied it from Val Kilmer.
Yeah. But yeah, it's
Val Kilmer and Christian Slater are the same thing. There's no difference.
Oh, no,
they're the
no,
same
no,
thing.
no,
They're
no.
absolutely the same. They're both
Christian
bad.
Slater has a very specific voice.
Yeah, but they both suck.
I'm Christian
No.
Slater.
Yeah, they both suck.
Val Kilmer, have you seen Kiss Kiss Bang Bang? Yeah, he's good in that.
Yeah, Gay Perry.
Yeah. So I recommend it as well. Again, I think it might be a little expensive to rent. I rent, it was my birthday weekend, past weekend. So I was like, we were blowing it out. I rented Lucky Logan and Wind River. So, but actually, I rented Wind River from Redbox because they had a 15-cent deal. So I paid 15 cents to watch that film. It's
pretty good.
Definitely worth it for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I recommend checking that out. It is in Redbox, so you can rent it for like, what, $1.50 or $2 or something.
Except when you go to Redbox and you have somebody who doesn't know how to use the Redbox and you just keep hitting the DVDs and the return slot and it doesn't work. And it's like, okay.
But I just like following the career of, Taylor. What's his last name?
I think Sheridan.
I'm bad about
There
names,
wasn't a
but
podcast he was on and went,
Was it the,
he was an actor first and then a writer.
Was that the creative screenwriting, whatever the new podcast is of that? Because I think I might have listened to that same one. Was he talking about like living in LA and basically like being poor?
No, it was a different podcast.
Okay. I listened to one with him as well. But yeah, I recommend that. I'm always up to see what he's going to write next because he's for me 3 good films in a row. Sicario is my favorite by far, but yeah, still definitely worth checking out if you like his other films.
Yep. So I know I didn't like with all the things going on. I didn't really have a chance to watch much. I've continued watching the Netflix series The Punisher, and I'm still a few episodes away from finishing it because I think it has 13 episodes, which is too many. Like if it was like 6 or 8, I think they have a much better story.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think that Marvel is kind of you think they are kind of past their prime on the Netflix series? Because it seems like everything that's come out lately.
Well, I think what happened was with Daredevil, and I think with the original like run of like origin shows, everybody's like, "Oh, these are awesome," because it's taking these characters and giving you like a slightly more R-rated version of them and putting in this more realistic universe, and it's on Netflix and blah blah blah. So everybody was kind of just like taken in by like getting this type of genre content that was a little bit edgier than what you saw on TV. And then I think once the newness wore off of that, it's like, well, all of these, even the good ones, are about 3 episodes too long. and then Iron Fist is just terrible.
And then like I don't think Defenders was really that well. I think to me it seems kind of like they kind of almost maybe this is the wrong terminology, but they like hit critical mass with all that crap as far as like the Netflix series, because it doesn't seem like anybody's super hot on some of the stuff.
Well, I think with like The Punisher, you can watch that without watching the other ones, because even the stuff that it shows in Daredevil season 2 is kind of backtracked and covered in the show. So you don't really need to watch much of those other series. You can just watch The Punisher, and it really doesn't. It feels pretty grounded. It doesn't really feel superhero-esque. It's just people shooting and blowing up people. There's not other stakes.
One thing I wonder too is it that even though it's set in like the world of the Marvel universe and those things are going on, but since this is kind of like, I'm gonna say they're the wannabes because they're not good enough to. They're like the B team. You know, the A team's the films. This is the B team. They're never going to be associated with the A team. And it's kind of like, what's the point?
Yeah.
Like, why am I watching these guys do these things? At the end of the day, really doesn't matter because you could argue that Spider-Man could just take care of all this crap much easier. Because
I guess the thought process is if they're good characters, you care about the characters more than the plot.
But it doesn't seem like they're good characters.
Yeah,
like
I'm not
Iron
arguing
Fist,
that. I'm just saying
I'm not saying that Punisher's not good, but I'm saying from what I heard from like Iron Fist and all this other stuff, is just like, to me, it's like, you know, like from if you've seen Spider-Man Homecoming, they're like, you just operate in this little gray area, and all these characters are in that gray area that Spider-Man technically would have been in for the same time period.
I mean, I think with the Punisher though,
So it's like, why give me this stuff when Spider-Man could come in and just like punch
but
one
here's
guy?
the thing
and it's
though,
over?
the Punisher's more involved in conspiracy stuff with like U.S. military and Central CIA.
I don't have any issue with this
so that's
Punisher.
fine. He's not involved in Shield or any of that type of stuff.
I'm saying you have like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and you have these other things that are all still connected, but they're
by
just
the thinnest of
by
threads.
the thinnest of threads, and then you know it's kind of like this will never. These characters, especially because some of these actors probably
like
aren't
Ghost
good.
Rider is not going to show up from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. onto Punisher.
One thing I was kind of thinking of, you know, where we're at with all these Marvel films coming out, tons, you know, several a year, and all these shows coming out.
Is it hitting critical mass?
Iron Man started in 2008. Disney is now starting their own streaming service. I wonder if they're, you know, also doing this because they're like, okay, we're going to start busting out these Star Wars films, you know, or TV shows, like they are doing the Marvel stuff. Because you could very much see that now that Force Awakens has been out for a couple years. You know,
Rogue
8
One.
years from now,
Rogue One was their success that it was still in the Star Wars universe, but it had no continuity with that side of Darth Vader.
But you know, if they have their own streaming service and they're getting that revenue directly, so that could support those in theory. But you would think they would almost have to like make some films and then just keep some lots. Like, okay, we're gonna have this show set in Bespin. We built this for the film. Now let's just keep using the set. You could see if they invested in that, they could do something very smart and still feel bigger.
Do Golden Girls in Bespin, and that show would be awesome.
So
I wonder if that's the direction they're going and why they decided finally to say, hey, screw Netflix.
Because I think you said
I think they just like, we own all the content.
Yeah,
Let's control
exactly.
it.
This is something else too. I'm sure I've heard the rumors that Disney's trying to buy out some portions of Fox.
Yeah.
Which would let them absorb the X-Men franchise. Now, my issue with that is like you hear, you know, like, this is just rumors. Maybe it's confirmed at this point, but you had the James Franco Multiple Man film that they've talked about, which is going to be more in the R-rated vein, like Deadpool and Logan. And to me, like the one thing is, I know the X-Men films, like the main ones, haven't been that good since Days of Future Past, which you've only had one since then. My thing is, like, would you be okay with Fox getting bought out by Disney if they went to more of the? Do you like the Logans and the Deadpools and, you know, like the Multiple Man, and, you know, you got the new Mutants that looks more like a horror film,
Gambit and
you
stuff.
got all this stuff that's kind of like, while they're kind of just good overall stories. So and I can't speak for the movies that came out yet, but the ones we have gotten that have been R-rated have all been very good films.
Well, the two of them.
Yeah, the two, but you got more coming this year. So my thing is, like, do you like that world that Fox is like, okay, look, we're just going to kind of do what we want, do these R-rated movies that are loosely connected, or would you be okay with them getting absorbed by Disney and being like, hey guys, what's going on?
Well, I think it would take Disney at least it'd take a number of years to resell this stuff and shuffle the deck to set up what they want to do. So I think it'd be kind of left as is for a while.
But see, I don't know if Disney would be okay.
Because the Avengers is already being shot, like it's done.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying, but you know, if they're going to try to get some of these characters in there, it's like, to me, it's like if I like what I'm seeing, and they're doing these superhero movies with different tropes, they're doing like very genre specific horror or like superhero movies where like Logan is kind of like a Western, and let's say like Deadpool is like the meta film. You get a horror film in New Mutants, and then with Multiple Man, you get like some type of a crime movie or something. Like, I like that.
Real quick too, I forgot something. Just to push this a little further. Godless was apparently written and I think directed by the guy who did all the Western elements of Logan.
Yeah.
Just to give you more push to watch that. But I don't know if I was talking to William about this on the last podcast or not, but I think, the appeal of some of these R-rated action films is that they're able to put some money behind some of these ideas because they are superhero films. So if they did make their own superhero films, you would think they wouldn't get as much of a budget. I like Logan. I like Deadpool. I only watched Deadpool once. I don't feel like there was much there aside from being a comedy, really, which was totally fine. And I thought it was funny. But for me, if it's just a good film, like I think I like Spider-Man Homecoming probably more than Logan. Like I liked Logan a lot and I really appreciate it, but I would probably rather, I've watched that twice. I've only seen Spider-Man once, but I want to watch that again. So it can go either way. Like if they're as good as something like Spider-Man, I'm okay if it's PG-13 type deal. But
I think the reason why Spider-Man is more fun than Logan, because I love Logan, that was my favorites of the year. But I think if I was going to rewatch a movie, I think Logan is such an experience the first time you watch it that it's kind of like in a lot of movies, or maybe it doesn't hold up as good as the second time around because the story's already been told, the plot beats, where Spider-Man is more just like happy-go-lucky fun time. So it's like those movies always hold up and like, Titanic might be a great film, but you don't want to watch Titanic twice.
A lot of people want to see that film a lot of times in theaters, though.
Now, though, it's like Peter Jackson's King Kong might have been an overall better film than Kong, but it's so long, and the first time it's an experience, the second time I don't want to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a film by film, case by case basis, but I don't want to. I don't want them to be constrict. I don't want them to constrict the creators, but at the same time, for me, I really don't have a dog in the fight because I don't really care if there's another
my thing
R-rated.
is just from antitrust concerns. I don't know if you want one studio controlling so much content.
So that's another thing I like too, because to me, it's kind of like the Monday Night Wars. Is like. And that's something talking about wrestling. When one person controls everything, then it gets kind of bad.
Well, I mean, too, if you just look at like different industries where one company controlled a huge chunk of content, and then they just leverage that ability against their competitors in an anti-competitive way. So I'm not sure if that's a good idea.
It would be a shame for apparently families and people who want to watch these superhero films. On the flip side, everybody else just has to say, well, I'm not going to buy their streaming services or whatever. You know what I mean? If it goes too far that direction, if they're wanting to charge $25 a month for their streaming service, in 10
Netflix
years,
is supposed to be going up again too.
Well, like $1.
But it'll eventually get to $20. There's no way.
I don't know, but
But I was just wondering your thoughts on that, because it's like, to me, I'm not just saying because I am an X-Men fan, but I do like I like having the happy-go-lucky, PG-13, nothing bad ever happens, kid-friendly movies. And then on the flip side, it is nice to have a movie that actually has like real like death in it and stuff that can actually happen. So far with the Marvel movies lately, it's just been like it's just too happy, too jokey, and it's like, okay, it's kind of nice to actually have the serious stuff too.
I just think you don't want one company controlling
no, you
so
don't.
much content.
But I'm saying it's kind of nice to have the best of both worlds.
So, and then Derek, you didn't have a chance to watch anything, right? No. So I guess now we can move into our discussion of Lethal Weapon.
Or who called it Leather Weapon?
I did.
Yeah, okay.
Leather Weapon.
Sean must have watched a different movie than we did.
Autocorrect.
Yeah, I did Leather. So I just immediately thought of Tobias Funke as Leather Daddy as the lead in Leather Weapon.
Yeah, so we'll discuss Lethal Weapon. So in 1987, a Richard Donner directed, Shane Black written movie starring Mel Gibson and Danny Glover, Lethal Weapon, came out. And so I rewatched this movie. So I know just growing up in that era, so it came out in like 87. So I was 2 years old. So obviously I wasn't seeing this in theaters.
Oh, you probably did.
And Shane Black was like, I think 26 or 27. So he's probably
young
early
guy.
20s when they bought this script.
And it's one of those things where, so the original, like that movie, like you had like Lethal Weapon 1, 2, and 3, they all came out, and then 4 was like delayed and came out years later. But I think between them being reran on cable nonstop and like having a dad who was into all the 80s action movies and stuff meant that I saw bits and pieces of these movies a lot. And a lot of it blended together to me just that era. But then rewatching them as an adult, so like the first Lethal Weapon, when it starts out with Christmas music, you're like, oh, okay, well, this isn't your standard, action film from that era. it's not Rambo Part 3.
Yeah, I was listening to the commentary track when I watched it this time. This is full spoilers, by the way. If you haven't seen Lethal Weapon, go watch it. I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, and first of all,
not that there's much to spoil.
I don't know if there's much here to spoil. You got the unhinged
Yeah.
cop and the guy that's wanting to retire.
And spoiler alert, Danny Glover's getting too old for this
he's
shit.
getting too old for this shit.
But what was I about to say? I can't remember.
Listen to the commentary track.
Oh, listen to the commentary track. I don't remember what I was going to say now.
Well, I think one thing I liked about this movie is like, not that this movie embraced Christmas a lot, but there was a lot of Christmas stuff in it. And that's why, like, to me, I think this is a better Christmas movie. It's just not really centered around Christmas.
Yeah,
you do have a lot of Christmas stuff.
It's just Christmas set.
But,
yeah.
like, if I had to pick between this and Die Hard, I'm going to go pick this.
Yeah.
And I think, for one, too, like, this was kind of, I want to say almost, I wouldn't say Mel Gibson's heyday, but this is when he was... Obviously not the Mel Gibson we get now,
like with the heyday would probably be like
In the 90s?
Braveheart when he directed
Yeah.
that and was.
But I'm saying,
in
but
it.
this was like
Yeah, I mean, this
starting
was the
that era.
beginning of
Yeah.
his, because I think he'd only done a couple of films before this. Donner said I guess he'd done some other film that he was really good in as
Well,
far
he
as
was
acting,
in-
and he didn't, and Donner didn't even think about Mad Max when the casting director brought Mel Gibson to him.
Yeah, because
or
you had
mentioned
like
him.
Road Warrior, Mad
Yeah.
Max, and
But this is kind of like, I think what makes the movie work so good is like, you got Danny Glover who just wants, was he Murtaugh? He just wants...
Murtaugh.
What's his name in it?
Murtaugh.
Okay. He just wants to retire. He's toward the end and, he gets the crazy suicidal cop,
So Donner also sets this up, which is stuff watching the film, but in the commentary you talked about, they are two opposites where that Mel Gibson's character has lost everything, so he has nothing to live for. Murtaugh has everything to live for. He has, he's going to be retiring. He has his family. So they are two opposite ends, really. And, obviously it has a really nice story arc where at the end, Mel Gibson gives him the bullet as a gift. But Donner also brought up, like, if they did another one, it would be flipped where Mel Gibson would be the one retiring and maybe has everything to live for. Because, now he's with...
Rene Russo.
Yeah, Rene
wasn't it?
Russo.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I was going to bring up that I'd forgot on the commentary, they were talking about basically how, really, I mean, I know Die Hard gets a lot of credit for at least stylistically looking so realistic and being lit with a lot of practicals and kind of having a more realistic feel on some levels.
Yeah.
But they talked about how this film, as far as action films of this era, also had a very realistic approach as far as the characters. Like, the characters mattered.
Yeah.
Before that, it was a lot of stuff that was almost just fantasy.
you had like
First
Arnold-
Blood and like...
Yeah, you had... Well, First Blood's a little different because First Blood was more grounded than Rambo.
Well, I'm
2.
saying like, yeah. But then what is like Jewel of the Nile or
Well, he had,
whatever,
like,
Romancing the Stone.
Commando, where
Yes.
Arnold Schwarzenegger's just like, my daughter's gone, and blows up Richard Nixon actor with a rocket. The guy played Richard.
Yes,
With
yeah.
he kills 100 guys in one
And
set.
two,
yeah.
sometimes the characters are only there to
kill stuff or die.
Yeah. So for this, it was very much
Bennett.
about kind of these characters that were actually characters, and that's kind of the strong point of this film, where it's like the plot is important, but really you are having so much fun just being with these characters and seeing their relationship grow and change. That's the story there, really. You have Gary Busey as the baddie, but he actually comes in the beginning. He's gone for a long time, even though he's the heavy. He's not like the boss or whatever.
Yeah.
And then he comes back at the end and we kind of pick back up. But really, it's kind of about these two characters. And that's what I think makes this film. It is why it's so easy to rewatch, because you're not watching a plot develop that you've seen 1,000 times. You're watching
you have
these
now,
characters.
but this is kind of like the infancy.
Well, I'm saying
of
that's not the point of it. It's not like watching a film where all you have is a plot.
Well, you
have characters that you love.
So you have like the plot, like even when I got done watching it, you're like, okay, so these guys that were in the military are smuggling in heroin, and then Tom Atkins' daughter got killed because of it.
No, she
Yeah,
committed suicide
because he was in.
she was poisoned. Yeah, she was poisoned. Yeah.
She was poisoned, but she committed suicide, and then so it's like the plot is kind of secondary to
it's just more there as a device for the characters.
And
the whole plot's a MacGuffin.
We've mentioned like other Shane Black movies. So The Nice Guys, which is a newer movie that has Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling, feels very similar to this movie in terms of plot, in terms of the fact of like this kind of mismatched partnership. And
It's set earlier in the 80s and the 70s,
Yeah,
but it's also in LA.
There's one part where, and this is a trope too that was probably done either before or after this movie a lot. But when you get introduced to Mel Gibson's character, he's like drinking a Coors Light in a mirror, and you're like after brushing his teeth. Flash forward to like Stranger Things, and you get introduced to Hopper, shirtless, wakes up, brushes his teeth, drinks a beer. It wasn't a Coors because they probably couldn't get the rights to it, but it's a similar can as the banquet beer. And I was like, oh, okay, that's it. It's just funny to see where they pull some stuff out of those movies.
Lethal Weapon for me, you talked about this, William, how your all's dad was way into this too. Like Lethal Weapon as a kid, I love this film and this series. Like I remember for some reason being at an auction when I was younger, like going to some random auction or something. It's just like junks everywhere. And I remember seeing this like Lethal Weapon, I think it was 2 or 3 poster, and just thinking like how awesome that was.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't ask for it or anything like that. Like I don't know if it was up for auction, but I remember just like loving that poster and just thinking like, damn, I love those movies. And I remember my parents renting part 2 and watching that for the first time.
You should have butted in. They're like $20, and you're like 25.
Well, this is something we talked about in previous podcasts, but you think about Lethal Weapon. I think one thing that these films have, not the first one as much as the second, third, and fourth, but when I associate this is always how, like, kind of like the opening, because, like, this film kind of opens up with the drug use and the suicide or the murder.
The mystery.
But whereas 2, 3, and 4 always come in mid-police chase.
Yes, yeah.
Like the fourth one, to me, is still today one of the most iconic, like, trailers I remember.
That's still like where the guy's got the blow.
He's got the flamethrower in the metal suit, and it's like, even 20 years later, because I think it came out in 98, like, that's something that I remember. Whereas like recent films, like I couldn't even tell you what was in which a film movie.
Yeah.
Like, a lot Spider-Man, I couldn't tell you what was in the trailer of that. But I remember that.
And the first film too has a lot of iconic moments that what I mean. Like the torture scene, is like very memorable.
And then like the one thing I love too, and this is kind of almost like Sam Raimi-ish, but everything that Danny Glover owns gets destroyed throughout this frame. Every single movie, his car,
and it's always
the house,
it's always under construction, and always gets messed
because
up.
of this movie. And I love like how I think this is more in the second, but like his car continues to get destroyed more and more and more through the film. Whereas the house is what happens in this one, where it continues to get destroyed.
What's funny too, though, is rewatching this movie, and I had pointed this out when I saw like it on cable or something in the past year. Is that the part where Riggs goes up to the roof with the jumper and then he handcuffs himself to the jumper?
Oh, you break your wrist.
And then they jump off. The part where they jump off, there is no handcuffs.
Yeah. Richard Donner was like mad about that whenever he was like, oh, and it broke.
Yeah.
So when you see that, it's very clear that there's nothing there.
Because I feel like in real life, if you did that, even if you landed on that pad, I feel like you're breaking a wrist. Like there's no way you wouldn't.
Yeah.
But that was a good scene.
Yeah, I mean the pool scene too. Where they're at the mansion, which is Richard Donner's house.
Yeah.
That's his house.
That's pretty cool.
And on the Blu-ray collection I got too, there's like a reunion like video they do where they're sitting there talking about the series, and they shoot that at his house also, like right there by the pool with the overlook. It's like a little cold.
I feel like too that scene where he shoots the guy and he falls in that really chintzy pool cover. Like I feel like that had to be dangerous in itself, because I know the point is the guy like drowns in the pool cover and they're trying to get him out. I feel like that's something you could probably really do doing that.
No,
scene.
I always got warned. Like my grandparents had an in-ground pool, and I always got warned like don't go out there and walk on it or walk near it, because if you do, it'll collapse on you. And then watching that film as a kid too, I was always like, everybody stay back from the pool. Like I know how this ends.
I can't remember. Is it who kills the guy in that? Who shoots it? Is it?
It's Riggs.
Riggs. Okay, because I couldn't remember.
I'm pretty sure it's Riggs, because Murtaugh is really mad at him because he's like, he basically is like, do you kill everybody you come across?
Because like your first real introduction to him, the way he is like when they're doing the drug sting and at the Christmas tree plays, and he just kills everybody there.
Well, because because Murtaugh shot the guy in the leg. He's like, see, I shot him in the leg. You don't have to kill everybody. Now we can question him. And then he pulled the other gun out, and then Riggs shot him, and he fell into the cover. So
he's talking about that's how you do real police work. And it's like, it's funny how different this movie would be in this political climate, because even then,
in the movie, so there's
a lot of political statements in this series.
So you have other iconic scenes. You have where Gary Busey's arm gets burnt, just showing how loyal he is, and he'll do whatever the boss asks. So that was kind of interesting to see. And then
this was good Gary Busey.
Yeah, good Gary Busey being used appropriately. And then too, another funny moment in the movie is later on they go to visit somebody's house and it blows up, and they find out that Gary Busey went and wired it up with explosives, and they're talking to the young there's 3 or 4 young black kids, and then even then in the 80s, the kids are like, my mom said you only shoot black people.
Yeah.
And then like Riggs is laughing and stuff. So like all these things that were
the apartheid, and then like there's an anti-NRA message in there.
Yeah.
You know, like there's like the whole series is littered with that stuff, and even the second film is about that.
So it's really interesting watching this in today's climate in 1987 and realizing that some of that stuff is still the same case
if
today.
not worse.
And it's interesting, regardless of what you think of the politics of it, just the optics of it are in 87 it sounds that way, or people felt that's how it was, and then 2017 30 years later people still feel that it's a similar situation. So that was just an interesting thing in general to watch and think about.
But, I mean this film, it aside from the mullet, really, it doesn't feel, and the giant Radio Shack cell phone that was apparently Richard Donner's also, like this film doesn't feel dated in those regards. Like it has its cliches, and part of it is because so many films
and the music
are built off the is built off the backs of this film.
But you're all right. Like even though it is in the 80s, it doesn't feel old. Like you can still watch this movie. And this is something I give props to this and things like Die Hard. Like even because we have a problem with a lot of movies. Like I think a younger audience would still enjoy this film because it's not. Now you go watch this action and watch like Atomic Blonde. Okay, Atomic Blonde's action scenes blow this out of the water, but you're talking 30 years of advancement.
But what holds up too is the characters. You know what I mean? The action can
come and go, but it's the characters.
The only thing, like something else watching this is Riggs kind of has a reckless abandon for civilian life. Just with an automatic rifle, just shooting it all off in public, and stuff.
But that fit his character, and you could see that character doing that.
But like the Nice Guys has elements of like civilian casualties. But,
there's very good deaths in that film.
But in Lethal Weapon, it was to me like kind of blurred together. But there's the iconic moments in there of like jumping off the roof with the guys on the roof threatening to jump off.
What about how they meet each other too, though? Where Riggs comes in and there's like
looking at his gun.
Yeah, and then they start fighting each other and he takes Murtaugh to the ground and he's like, I'm getting too old for this shit. It's like, because that was the first time he said that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That was the introductory to that.
And too, like Richard Donner points out, when it opens on Murtaugh in the bathtub, he has like his gray beard. But when he's in the office, he has shaved it because he's self-conscious about getting older and stuff.
About it. Yeah. I think his daughter says something about it.
His daughter mentioned it.
So he comes in clean shaven.
Which we were talking about this pre-podcast is like, he was 40 in this film?
When he's shot, he's like 40, 41.
Playing a 50-year-old. So it's one of the few times you have somebody younger playing an older age. You don't see that a lot. And they didn't try to, nowadays they'd age him up. They'd get a 20-year-old guy. Like, you're going to be 50.
I mean, because there's not, depending on the person.
Well, Danny Glover honestly probably looked about like he did then almost until recently, probably the past couple of years. He's one of those guys kind of like Sean Connery who hit a certain point and they probably didn't age very much.
Yeah, they could play the same range for like 30 years. But I mean, so then you also have like you mentioned, like the torture scene moment. That's kind of an iconic moment, like when
which those guys played villains in like every 80s movie for a long time.
And then you had like the desert scene.
That was cool.
Where the only like when the helicopter's trying to take down the car, it's like it seems like the helicopter has more to lose there.
Yeah. Well, and two, the Tom Atkins getting shot with the eggnog, like again a Christmas tree.
That's cool,
perfectly in front of his chest.
Which it's funny when he was in a lot of movies too, because he was like in Halloween and a couple other things.
Well, Halloween 3.
He's
a fog. It was Escape from New York.
Yeah. But it's just funny because there's like a certain point in time where like he was really just an 80s actor and he was in a lot of crap around that time.
And so you have like him pop up. Like one thing that was noticeable to me about the movie, like talking about the production side of it, is it used a lot of ADR, and that's just where they re-record the dialogue later, because there's a lot of times like the dialogue is too loud and clean, and stuff doesn't match. Like when Riggs was doing like the shooting range and he's humming, you can tell he wasn't doing any of that on set.
Or if they were, you just couldn't hear it.
And so just a lot of that type of stuff. Like I mean, to most people, it's not going to stick out. Just having worked on projects and short films and films or whatever, this stuff sticks out to you more because it's easy to kind of recognize. And because like a lot of movies in the 80s really did use a lot of ADR, because I'd assume trying to capture audio on set in the 80s, like in LA.
Donner was also talking about some scenes he would let them just riff. I don't know if it was like some fighting scenes or or I think it was like just scenes of them talking and stuff. I think he said like, hey, we would just let them go and shoot it.
Yeah.
He's like, and then it was the editor problems that cut my voice out. So I think he was probably talking over, giving some direction, and then would just worry about it later.
Well, this is jumping way ahead. Not that this really matters, but one of the things I do appreciate with this film is the fight scene at the end between Riggs and Busey, because that's not that it's super realistic, but it was pretty realistic because they were doing like this was more like jiu-jitsu MMA style.
They said
stuff.
It was like BJJ, and they blended a couple styles,
which is really cool because I feel like watching that fight scene, I feel like that fight scene is probably 20 or 30 years ahead of its time for using that stuff, because a lot of times
it was just like somebody throwing a big haymaker and a big punch sound.
Because you had more of like a choreographed fight that uses real grounded fighting styles, as opposed to like those Die Hard stuff where it's just like, throwing haymakers and
Die Hard was more like just shooting.
Yeah, but I'm saying, but stuff like that where you just have like, people just punching.
It's just like martial arts, scripted martial arts fights. They said basically, I think they come up with first of all, they wanted to do this fight scene in the streets of L.A. In rain, or maybe they changed it up. Anyway, basically it was too expensive, so they just had the fire hydrant in the front lawn. And they said too, the fight, they didn't like pre-script it all. They actually worked on the fight there on set. So they would kind of do a couple things, block it out, rehearse that, do it, and then they basically let it evolve naturally on set. And that's probably what made it just feel like so natural.
It was just kind of cool to watch it because like I said, like you watch something like Face Off or The Rock or something like this, and you have fight scenes, you have the Sean Connery like one punch, and it's like, not that there's anything wrong with that, because I love that, but it's kind of nice to see, because like I said, I really feel like that fight scene is something you see more.
It grounds the characters in the film
but
more.
I feel like that's something you see more like maybe since 2010, mid 2000s.
And something else that I liked about it is that there was no love interest for Riggs. His wife had died, and he was near suicidal. Murtaugh already had a family. So
it was about them. It gave them time to grow together.
It was
just fine that they bring one in for the next one, because
but it fits the film because it's more of the acceptance point.
And two, just the thing I like about it was, like, of course it opened with like a little bit of nudity and stuff at the very beginning,
but there wasn't a whole lot.
But it wasn't.
Which is the typical, like,
80s,
the mystery novel opening. Like, that's what he does that in The Nice Guys as well, and that's what he has like built his career on, kind of those.
But it's just like the movie after that point then doesn't have a lot of women around just as set dressing, and it doesn't have Riggs just swimming in naked women who are interested in him and stuff. So it like in the sequels you gave him like a love interest and stuff, but in the first film it was more of just about those two partners, like figuring out the balance and Riggs coming to terms with accepting what happened and not being suicidal and having to try to find something.
You see growth in his character.
So you had that element to it, and the fact that a lot of those movies in the 80s really shoehorned in love interest for no reason, and then it would inevitably end up with the bad guy with the gun to a girl or something.
Yeah, well, you still kind of had that aspect with the family part, but it was different because again that was like somebody's daughter.
And then too, at the end they knew what he was going to do, so the family wasn't at risk. He just happened. Gary Busey just killed a couple of cops, but so I bet they were kind of would have retroactively regretted their role in that sting operation or whatever the plan was. But so then you had, like I said, you had a number of parts of the movie that I remember very clearly, like the part in the desert. I remember having seen.
Was this the part? Because I watched 1 and 2 back to back. The first one doesn't he get shot in the chest with a shotgun at one point by Gary Busey or something?
Yeah, they think he's dead.
And that was a really good scene because I love that because there was something you didn't see in those movies that much because he's like out in the street trying to find the girls, trying to set them up.
All of a sudden,
and so he took a risk that he was going to get shot in the chest. And, he could have been wrong, but that's the kind of part that you liked about Riggs because it was like that kind of reckless abandon for himself.
Because they should have shot. They could have did a headshot.
Yeah, and it would have been over, But he took that risk, and it paid off, And
it's one of those things too, where they kind of figure out what the plot was, or what it was actually happening with like the criminal element. But if you blink and you miss it, then you're like, wait, what'd they say? They just dumped a lot of info right there. But it's kind of secondary.
Yeah,
it's just the character development, and it's mostly just about like the growth and character development between Riggs and Murtaugh, and Riggs not being suicidal, and like Gary Busey, like conveniently is not in the room when Riggs escapes when they're being tortured. He's like in the club leaving. Yeah. Because otherwise then there's no climax to the film because it ends there in the club. So some of this stuff is a little bit convenient that he happened to just be leaving.
Well, it's like the Bond movies where like you're going to send them in a trap to die, and then they conveniently leave so you can have the final showdown. Like you said, that's mainly for plot. Like you have to do that
because they wanted to give the final showdown, to happen.
Countdown.
So you and then too though the only thing in the final fight between like Riggs and Gary Busey's character is that the stakes are relatively low because they're surrounded by cops, so it's not like Riggs is going to die.
But it's more just the fact that Riggs wants to take
him down.
To take him down. That's all that is because like even Danny Glover's like just let him finish it out.
He's like he killed 2 of our own. Let him finish it.
Yeah.
So and two, like the stakes in the movie stay pretty small. At the end, it's really like there was no plot to blow up the city. There was no multi-million-dollar. There was like the drug deal.
Yeah, they were after their family and them personally, basically.
But the real stakes were just
their own lives.
Murtaugh's family.
Yeah.
But I still think at the end of the day, like that's what make, especially the first two, because even the second one is still the stakes really are just them. But I think it's why Lethal Weapon is so enjoyable is because like it's not blowing a building up. They're not doing this. They're not holding things for ransom. It's really just.
They did blow a building up in that one with a detonator.
That was in the third.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
one of them.
I'm saying, in the first two, it wasn't like that. But like in this one, like that's what I think makes it so enjoyable is like you said, it's really just a smaller contained story that really, if both of these guys are killed, then then it's kind of over.
Yeah, you don't care about the plot.
Yeah,
really.
you don't care about the plot or like their family. And I think that's what makes this enjoyable. Is especially first movies are always like that where they're smaller scale. And I like just something I didn't really realize you said, but that's what makes it enjoyable is because there's no like. All it is just drugs and money, and that's still what's going on today. So it's like they're not trying to overthrow the government. They're not trying to do this or that.
They kept like when Gary Busey was saying product, and then Riggs like, "Why don't you just call it is? Call it heroin." He's like, "Okay, we're waiting for our shipment of heroin."
Yeah.
Well, it's not like whatever that fourth Die Hard movie was, where it was like hackers are taking over everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not John McClane versus saving the United States.
Yeah, John McClane running up the side of a jet, jumping onto blowing up a helicopter, and saving the world from Timothy Oliphant as a hacker with Kevin Smith. And
Grant, like the fourth Die Hard gets a little ridiculous because Mel Gibson does like get drugged behind a moving.
That's a great scene though. That's
it's a great scene, but like that is
the fourth Die Hard.
No,
you mean Lethal Weapon.
Okay.
Die Hard.
Which is ridiculous as that scene is, like that is still 1,000% more possible than running on a Harrier jet.
Yes. Yeah.
But that again, like these still say a little, and that was in the '98.
Well, something else watching the movie I thought about is I'm surprised that there like wasn't much blowback for their characters in that film universe because they caused a shit ton of collateral damage by pursuing people in public versus letting them go.
Well, I think in the later films that's addressed more because they get
They
demoted.
get in trouble. Yeah, that's why they're on the streets.
Yeah, because they get demoted for that. And then like in the third one, is that why they get demoted or is that the fourth? I can't
think
remember.
That's
they get in trouble
one.
in both.
Yeah,
of
I think
them.
it's the third one maybe.
And then Joe Pesci comes into the later film,
which is the second one.
Yeah, so
he was good in the second. And then by the
I like the entire series. Yeah, the second one has some goofier moments, and I
still love.
They're almost a little bit more caricatures, but I really like the whole series because and even the end of that fourth film when you see like the cast photos and like the crew photos, like it does feel like this is like made by a family of people because it was same director throughout, same cast, and it just I don't know you're watching a movie, watching these two. Shane Black, he did the story on the second one, but didn't write the script for it. And I know he has problems with some of that. Some of the like the surfboard comment when the surfboard goes to the guy's head. You know, that's like cheesy.
That's
like
ridiculous.
Surf's Up or whatever. I don't remember what he says, but
that again, like would even be an '80s film.
Yes,
or early '90s film.
I mean, I like these films like warts and all. Really.
I mean, they're fun, and
it's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite action franchises by far.
Well, you have like the LA noir tinge buddy cop comedy action film that so many things after that replicated and kind of cherry picked from.
I loved Rush Hour, but Rush Hour was definitely another. It was a little bit different, but it's still similar because like this movie had kind of like the one thing I don't really know if they had really went in this film or not is like the different cultures of the different races coming together. That was something I don't really know if they picked up on as much. Whereas like something like Rush Hour definitely kind of tackled that.
Well, I mean, but too,
a little bit more.
Like, I mean, and too in the '80s though, if like Danny Glover's character and Mel Gibson's characters are both like veterans of the Vietnam War, and they were both guys that were police officers.
Yeah, they had a lot of common ground.
They had a lot of common ground, and as long as Mel Gibson wasn't a raging racist, at that point in his life. there was like, or at least Riggs wasn't. Then there wasn't a lot of difference between those characters. So the racial elements would have been more in how they handled policing.
Well, I think too. Richard Donner, as he said, he's a self-proclaimed liberal. Based on some of the messaging in this too. But he said like the casting director brought Danny Glover, and he said to them like, "Oh, but." Danny Glover's black. And then he realized in the script it said nothing about race identification. Yeah. And he realized he was projecting that on himself, and he thought, oh, why would I, and I think they may have got some praise by NAACP for that casting on that. I can't remember exactly, but I took a couple notes, but.
Well, yeah, and two, having Murtaugh be the character that's in the position of power, and
he has the established family, and
he's the one he has the more standard family life and has been more successful, and he's the one that, Riggs refers to as his boss.
Yeah. Because think about it, Riggs is kind of the guy living in the van down by the river for all these films. And it is kind of like, that's kind of reversal of how a lot of things usually probably be in some. One thing I like is there were no racial tropes in it, and that was something that's kind of nice too. You didn't really get on either side. You may have, unless I just completely missed it.
Too, we're just about the first film.
Yeah, the first film. I'm not talking about the second, the third.
So in the first film, they're the only real mentions of race were the kids.
Yeah.
And they were just afraid to talk to the cops or didn't want to. Yeah. And like I said, that would still probably hold true today. Yeah. And so all that stuff felt true. It didn't feel forced or anything like that. So watching the movie, like we said, aside from the mullet and some of those other elements, there's a reason they probably made this into a TV series, because when we were looking up stuff for Lethal Weapon, all I kept seeing was stuff about the new show. It's like, I'm not looking for this.
Some people seem to really like it. It's hard for me to give it a chance yet, but some people love this series, and they say it's really good even if you like the films.
Well, you got Damian Wayne in it, right?
Yeah.
Damian Wayans. Damian Wayans. But he's great in everything, because that's another guy I grew up watching and everything. So, and something just, I don't know about I'm perfectly fine with him.
Yeah.
It's the guy they have to play Riggs. Yeah. Look at him, he's like,
I don't know. My grandpa called me probably a week and a half ago and was telling me about his DVR only recorded the first 5 minutes of that, and he was so upset. He's like, I love this show. He's like, I'm telling you, it's so good. That guy's so crazy in it. Yeah. So my grandpa's super high on it. I got him to download the Fox app or whatever on his Roku and got it that way, but he was so distraught because he was not able to watch that week's Lethal Weapon.
But it is something I would be interested to go watch, but I would have to be, and this is something we always talk about too when it comes to remakes and stuff, I got to take some of my own advice and just watch it for what it is, you know? Well, because it can't, and this is something that we always say to people, you can't ruin the original films by having a TV show.
Yeah.
The only way you can ruin the original films is if you get the original actors to do something stupid. But if it's a completely different universe, then it's whatever.
Too, that is an issue with all with remakes, reboots, or whatever. Everyone's like, oh, you're sullying the name of the original.
But the only way you're sullying the name of the original is if you get the original cast in it and they go retroactively change what happened in the original.
I think the ways you ruin original properties via sequels is when the sequel takes what you loved about the original and has those characters and has those people, and then ruins what you liked about the story.
Yeah.
And so, to me, I like to pretend that the Alien universe ended after Aliens.
Yeah.
Because with that movie set up in my mind was for this epic, third entry into the franchise, and they just went a completely different direction. So me, in my head, canonically, it's Alien, Aliens, and then nothing.
Yeah, do you really want to even, accept the Ridley Scott?
Because Alien 3 was, gets a lot of crap, but at the same time didn't deliver what you wanted. The Lethal Weapon movies,
always delivered. But I think it's easier to deliver in the world of Lethal Weapon than it is in the world of Alien. Because if you just give me buddy cops, ridiculous scenarios, I'm good.
Well, and two,
you can repeat that. You can't repeat horror successfully too many times.
The TV series, which none of us have watched. I would assume it's more of a procedural because it's on a network.
I just haven't watched it too because, again, I'm not into shows.
I have too much stuff.
I'm not into TV shows that much, and the ones I do, I like it when it's 10 episodes, like Godless or something. I can watch it and be done with it.
Well, too, it being on a network and having the standard episode, I would assume it's the 22 episode per season order, maybe.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Whatever it is, it's a lot of content versus I'm used to, like, we get used to the Netflixication of things where it's like they drop a show, you can watch them all over the course of a week and
it's
a half.
like, usually smaller amounts, which like for Stranger Things I think is beneficial. That's only 10 or 9 or whatever
it was 8
is.
episodes for season 1 and 9 for,
Yeah.
So I think that
They don't extend their stay too long.
Yeah, so I mean, like, if they were to go back and make another Lethal Weapon film at this
Which
point,
they've been talking about recently,
but,
which is
like,
weird because they have the show now. You would think that would like
dissolve the
kinda
continuity.
yeah.
Well, and two, you have all the Mel Gibson issues that happened from.
But I mean, he's kind of in a lot of stuff. You know what I mean?
Well, here's the thing.
He's in Daddy's Home too.
Yeah,
Like
well,
he's kind of.
And I'm not
in
making
people's-
light of what Mel Gibson did because the stuff he did, he got in trouble for and should have because it was you don't need to do that in this day and age or any time. But now it's like with him, you look at the stuff that he did. Now there may be more allegations come out because we don't know because all this stuff is very fluid. It's developing. Everything's coming out daily. But like he kind of gets put in the back burner because his things were and there maybe was physical assault. Maybe I have to go and read the allegations.
with him and that one ex, but
Yeah, but you go look at like all the other stuff. It's like he's kind of had the benefit of this happened years ago.
Well, it happened. It happened when it was in the mid 2000s, and it wasn't in the amidst a firestorm of other things.
and he's won
So
an
he-
Oscar for a movie since then.
So
too,
he was
didn't
able to take time away from the limelight and then work his way back into
Yeah.
things and try to rehab his image as opposed to today.
So October 27th, Deadline reported this. It wasn't exclusive or anything. It says, looks like the band just might get back together. Deadline hears that Mel Gibson, Danny Glover, Richard Donner are all huddling on the possibility of doing another film for the Lethal Weapon franchise. So Donner would direct. Channing Gibson, who wrote Lethal Weapon 4, would script it. And that's basically it. But like I said in that commentary, Donner talked about, I guess back then, I don't know when that was recorded, that Mel Gibson would be kind of the one that was retiring and then had everything to live for.
Yeah. Yeah, because at the end of Lethal Weapon 4, he is, I don't know if he's married yet, but he's heading toward marriage, has a kid.
Yeah, I think he proposes to her.
proposes. Yeah, so so it'd be kind of interesting to see where that goes with.
Which that seems like a logical progression if you had to do another one.
Yeah,
of
it'd be
those films.
interesting. It's one of those things like I would watch it, but my biggest thing nowadays is like with so much stuff out there, and that being almost 20 years since the last one. Would there be a huge enough audience to get a lot of money? Because I feel like if you did a small budget,
because the TV show audience is probably not interested in that original
it's weird.
series.
Yeah, it's a
And-
weird thing to do. but-
unless if the only thing, they couldn't. The only thing is with the new Lethal Weapon franchise is they have those. It's not like a lot of reboots. Like those are those characters in that universe. So there's no way you could cross the two over.
Well, I mean, and two, like,
What
I
if
think
that's
if you,
his son? Mel
I mean,
Gibson's
you could.
if you look at a lot of stuff though, so well,
Because Danny Glover could have a 50-year-old son because he's in his 70s.
well, he had daughters though on
I'm
the show.
talking about
on the movie.
I'm talking about Riggs' son.
Yeah.
the guy that's crazy.
Yeah, but there's a lot of problems with that. But that's
But when
one-
you look at other stuff where they brought back, those 80 kind of stars, like the Expendables, I mean, those have done okay, but I don't think they've done great.
The difference with the Expendables though is it wasn't those characters. It wasn't Rambo. It wasn't their popular characters from the 80s. It was just popular 80s.
Well, even like the more popular,
actors.
like so the Rambo 4, like it did well, but it
Or
didn't,
just Rambo.
It didn't, or John Rambo or whatever
It was
it was
just Rambo.
because they had Rambo, then they had Rocky,
His first
Balboa.
blood. Yeah.
But I'm saying like they've had these other characters come back
I think you would have to come up with a really good story and not just
and keep the budget relatively low.
not just say, okay, how can we keep going with this? Come up with a really good original story where it didn't even have to be a Lethal Weapon film. You know what I mean? Granted, it would be those
Well,
characters
I
that
think
would, and not call it Lethal Weapon 5.
Yeah.
Call it Lethal Weapon something.
Well, I think
you know?
we kind of look at what Creed did. All right, Creed is in the universe of Rocky, based upon the child of Apollo Creed. It has Rocky in it, not as the main character, but as a supporting character. And that movie got really great reviews, got Oscar. They were talking about
If you
that.
make a good film,
Yeah,
you can
I'm
get
saying, if you
people
make a
in
good film.
seats.
I think at this point, though, I don't know if you have Mel Gibson, Danny Glover as the leads. I think they might work depending on what you want to do.
Danny Glover, there's no reason that he should still be on the police force.
No,
at his
I
age.
don't.
Yeah.
I think if anything, it would be the way you could do this was that some sort of old case came up
Yeah.
that links to their history or past. Maybe Joe Pesci gets killed,
Yeah.
and Mel Gibson is on the force with the younger one, and he has to go to Danny Glover to get help on this. Even though Danny Glover's retired, he has to kind of pull him as almost as a consultant.
And the first line
and he gets involved in it,
And if he doesn't say I'm too old for this shit, as soon as he knocks on the door, it'd be kind of interesting.
No, he walks the door with a walker. And he's like, "What are you talking about, Rick?"
What's that movie Danny Glover's in with
Danny Trejo?
Danny Trejo.
I don't know. It's ridiculous. It's on Netflix or it was for
there's a
long
couple
time.
of them.
I know what you're talking
He's
about.
in one of the Machete movies, isn't he?
Yeah, and there's another commercial with him in it too that kind of where like Danny Glover's like getting blown up and thrown all around the place. You know the commercials I'm talking about? They haven't been
I don't
on
think
TV.
so.
Have you seen any of them? It's for Hulu or some type of streaming service where like he's like cutting bombs up or
So Danny Glover's 71. He's older, but he's not. 71's not.
Well, Harrison Ford's what 70 something too,
Yeah,
and he
so,
was
I
in
mean-
Blade Runner.
So let's see here. I'm trying to figure out.
And Danny Glover's in a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
like I would like to see a Lethal Weapon 5 kind of with hell get Ryan Gosling, put him in it, and put like who's the guy that played Apollo? Who's that? Crap, that actor.
Carl Weathers.
No, his son Creed. movie.
Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah, get them two in it and put them in.
So let's see. So Danny Glover's in a movie from 2015 called Day of the Mummy.
He was also in Dirty Grandpa. I
He's
think.
in Badasses on the Bio.
That's what I'm thinking of. Badasses and Badasses too.
He's in.
But there's like a commercial that maybe it's for Hulu or something where like he's like all these different scenarios.
Badass 2, Badasses.
Yeah,
That's always popping up. I accidentally started looking at the filmography, then realized I was looking at Donald Glover. He could be the son.
You could get there's so many possible. You could get Ryan Gosling, Donald Glover.
Hey,
it'd be
Donald
interesting.
Glover with Mel Gibson.
That'd be interesting.
It would be Danny Glover's grandson that has to work with Mel Gibson, and there's a connection.
Yeah, and that'd be interesting. And then,
Yeah.
like, it'd be kind of funny to do the Blade Runner 2049 approach, or like they're trying to find Danny Glover, and that's like the movie.
So like he moved.
And then they find him. He's like, I'm too old for this shit.
it'd be
He's
the
like
first,
tied up.
Yeah, it'd be like the first thing they see, and he's like, that could be fun.
and,
like,
and they
work.
find him in a retirement community in Florida.
Because like I feel like if you did that movie on like a Deadpool 1 budget, which is like what 60 million or less,
Yeah.
and you came out and only made because I think in America that it would do decent,
Well, internationally it probably has pull because of
because
those actors,
of who it is, but it just one of those, and hell, you can even have Mel Gibson direct it. I mean, or
Well, it said Richard Donner.
Richard Donner. You had it'd just be interesting. But I think there's still a lot of because it'd be something I'd be interested in.
Yeah.
Because it's
So-
getting to the point now if you're going to do it, you need to do it.
Shane
soon.
Black would take control over all of it. That's when I'd be like, all right, I'm on board.
And they might get him to get on with it.
So I guess we can give our review scores and wrap up our discussion of Lethal Weapon. So giving it a score out of 10. So like in terms of just a pure movie and watching it today, like taking all the nostalgia factor out and stuff, I think it's still like at minimum like a 7. But when you add in like the nostalgia and how all of it plays, it's like a 9.
Yeah, I definitely have to go with an. You know what? I'm going to 10 with it.
Me too. 10 out of
Because
10.
it's one of those movies that I have seen I don't know how many times, and I could watch that movie because I watch
I
it
could
so
go home
much.
and watch it right now.
Yeah, Courtney got tired of watching because I just put it on.
Nicole didn't want to watch it either. She
Yeah.
said, I've seen that movie like multiple times this year. And so I was like, I'll put on the commentary at least.
Yeah.
That way it's
It's
something different.
Yeah.
But I've watched that so many times just this year.
Yeah, and it's kind of like the thing is that way with me too, where I can watch a movie in limited times. I can watch this. Die Hard I can watch. But I can't watch it. There's something special about this movie.
Well, Die Hard is something that's been so kind of overblown in pop culture because of like the Christmas aspect of it.
No.
But there's a lot of people that really, again, I want to watch it from a analytical perspective because I see a lot of talk about how well written that script is and the structure and everything. And like, there's so many perfectly scripted moments in that. And I really want to kind of dive into that film. And that's the reason why I brought it up a little bit too. Cause I was like, I want a reason to watch that. And I don't actually own like a Blu-ray copy of it. I don't think I own a DVD copy because it's on TV so much.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to get soon and kind of actually do kind of research on it and kind of dissect that.
This is going off a little off topic. VH1 had like Throwback Weekend during Thanksgiving, and I watched. They had like Come to America, which is great. Trading
Which they're doing a
Places,
sequel of maybe.
yeah, and they did Trading Places. If y'all seen that,
Yeah, we
which
watched that recently
That's
again.
great. I went and did some reading on that movie, and I think it's Italy. I could be wrong, but that's like their official movie of Christmas, and it's like our Christmas story.
Trading Places?
Yes, in
Wow.
Italy. That is, and I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure it's Italy, but like we do the marathon of Christmas Story.
Oh, yeah.
that's their movie. That's what they show at Christmas time because like
That
the
is
moral
awesome.
messaging in it. So like that's the movie that like they do for like I think almost all month. They have it like on.
I'd like to spend a Christmas, a December in Italy then for that.
Because it's really interesting. 'Cause I forgot that what's her name's in it from Halloween and True Lies.
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah, Jamie Lee. I forgot.
Oh yes,
she's in
yes,
it.
that's right. Yeah, because I
And,
just watched that this year,
and that's like this is one of the good Dan Aykroyd movies. 'Cause
Yeah.
he's good in this.
I just read too an article. It was basically dissecting what happens at the end. You know, kind of how they.
Is it the
work.
monkey gorilla suit? I guess the guy gets perpetually raped.
No, not that.
Yeah,
the
but-
stock trading.
Yeah.
The way that's all
Oh,
working.
they wrote a law about it. It's the Eddie Murphy
yes,
law.
yeah, and I read how that works out in that film.
It's actually
yeah.
called the Eddie Murphy
Yeah.
law or
Yeah.
something. And
Murphy's Law.
Basically insider trading. It's stopping insider trading.
and it's funny because they wrote a law about that. But I was reading that same article, or it was on Wikipedia, and it was talking about like I'm pretty sure it's Italy, but it's like that's their version of our Christmas story.
Yeah,
That is what they show.
That movie rules.
So,
and so does Coming to America.
Yeah, Coming to America is really great too, especially because it's like you could see the later on when we hit the Chappelle show, they had Whack Arnold's, and they kind of always remind me of that.
Did you see they opened one of those restaurants up here recently?
No,
yeah.
the Coming to America restaurant.
They opened up that restaurant for like a day or two.
Yeah.
I think I don't know if it was in New York or where.
One of the best things in the Coming to America is when Eddie Murphy's trying to get good with the dad. So he's like, "Did you see the sports ball game where they kick the oblong ball through the H?" And he's like, "Boy, if you're on drugs," it's just like it was so funny because like Eddie Murphy did a really good job of like acting porn
Well,
because
and
like
too because it's like showing how abstract sports are. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
to
Like
the
his
people.
perspective of it, like that's just this weird thing people are doing, and I don't really
yeah,
know.
I just love how
like,
he broke it down to his most basic thing, and he's like, "Don't come to work on drugs again."
but
If you haven't watched that movie, you need to watch it because
so
Coming to
it's
America
all
is great.
80s.
Oh, and Coming to America is like where the Eddie Murphy trope came, where everybody he dressed up as all of himself. It's like the
Yeah.
barbershop
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that'll wrap up our discussion of Lethal Weapon. And if you're listening to the podcast through iTunes, leave us a review there. That helps other people find the podcast. Find all the stuff we're doing at housebyvideostore.com. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media accounts on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. I think that's all the important ones.
You find me on my own stuff, even though I cut William off at
DerekCaps.com.
Yeah, Derek Cap. No, on
It's more important than House of Video stuff.
Instagram and Twitter at MetaWorld Derek.
I'm Levin Sean on Twitter.
And then I'm at William Caps on Twitter. But just follow the official House of Video Store stuff. We post more. I probably post more through that than I do through my own stuff at this point.
Yeah, William just posts his pictures of turkeys on his own.
Yeah, gobble gobble. Now it's time for ho 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 or Christmas, whatever. But
Same thing.
that'll bring this episode of the House by Video Store podcast to a close. Thanks for listening.
Reese Witherspoon.
House by the video.